What's going on, everybody? I'm back. Today, what I want to talk to you guys about is I don't want to get dark on you guys, but today's topic is life and death. That's right, life and death. And the reason that I wanted to get into this topic is because what I've noticed is that, you know, although we may not notice it ourselves, but most of what we do is kind of derived behind, how do I say this? We all have this thing about not existing. We even if we have our own concepts in our minds of ourselves, if we can't verify that in someone else's eyes, it's like it doesn't really exist. And so there's this thing about us that we want to exist in other people's eyes. We don't want to just fade away from everyone's memory. We don't want to just turn into nothing. Everybody wants to exist on and on and on, and that's kind of where most of our pain comes from with loss. Is that with loss is the opposite of continuing, and we become afraid of dying in a sense because we want to go on forever. We can't think of not existing, of not being here. Like, imagine that. Imagine just fading into blackness, into nothingness, and we all think of that like, oh my God, it's horrible. But I'm here to tell you guys it's not as bad as it seems. And I know you're looking at me like, oh, how does he know he's still alive? And I know I am. And you kind of just have to take my word for it here. But when I tell you that I'm a reliable source, I'm probably as reliable as it gets. And to be completely honest, I don't want to say me. I'm reliable. I want to tell you that that whatever it is that guides what I say to you guys. Because believe it or not, it's not me. It's when I make these videos, when I talk to people, when I tell them about things that I feel are needed to be said to them. It's not because somewhere my ego tells me like, oh, I need to tell these people what they need to do. No, it's nothing like that. To be honest, the best way for me to explain it is like somewhere inside of me there's a window, and I only found this window because for years and years I told myself I was in control of things, and I thought I was kind of the you know I was in complete control of my destiny, and I had things under control, and as long as I kept my wits about me, and I could use my brain, and I could stay on top, and eventually it got to the point where I realized that you can't really control what happens. And so what I realized was that no matter what you do, you could try to prepare for the next moment as much as you want, but you don't really know what's going to happen in the next moment. And so somewhere I became comfortable with not preparing for the next moment, with being completely unaware of what comes, and to an extent, that becomes some of my enjoyment in my life, like that. Every moment is spontaneous. It can contain whatever. Like you really can't predict the next moment. And my whole point being is, in order for me to get to that place, I have to become really still inside. Like I have to go to a place where it's complete acceptance of everything. And once I feel that acceptance, like I could feel like I don't need nothing else besides what's in this moment. It's like a window opens, and whatever flows out from that window is what I give to you guys. And so that's me explaining why I believe that what I tell you guys is extremely reliable. Now, what I want to tell you guys is, we may be afraid of death, but if you really think about it, the part of you that fears death is part of you that is life. Part of being alive is to want to be alive. You shouldn't want to die. That's first thing. And when you die, the part of you that fears being alive is gonna die as well. So, you know, as afraid as we are, you need to understand that fear is something that drives us to stay alive. And it's good that no one wants to die. And that's who should want to just give this up. This is life is beautiful. However, your life should not be driven by the fact that you're afraid to fade away. That creates disturbance in our life, because behind the things that we do, is a driving force that is kind of selfish, and we can deny it as much as we want, but as long as we're afraid, as long as our life is being guided by fear and not love, then everything we do has our little ulterior motives behind it. And I'm not judging anybody because of that, because I know how hard it is to go deep enough inside yourself where you could rise above those impulses. I know how hard it is, and that's at the state that human beings are at right now, that's like going against human nature itself, almost. It depends on how you think of it. Anyway, my point is, there is another way. There is another way. And that is the good part about the fear of things. For example, I may not seem like an anxious person. I may not seem like it, but I used to have really, really bad anxiety. And, as much as I hate my anxiety, I know that without my anxiety, I wouldn't know the things that I know now, because I wouldn't have that depth to myself like that. I wouldn't have gone to those levels of myself to figure out, what's really going on, because I wouldn't have felt that pain. And my whole point in saying all that is this, that the fear of death is good, and death is just another part of life. Like, death is not the opposite of life. Death is the opposite of birth. When you look in nature, when things I worked outside in the trees for a while, and let me tell you something: when a tree dies, that's not the end of the tree, because I kid you not, grass grows right out of the side of trees, like as if it was soil, the most nurturing soil that you can imagine, and the grass just grows right out of it. And I've even seen different kinds of grass growing, and that just goes to show you that life doesn't end where death is like life. That's just where that birth ends. And my whole point in saying all this is that life, you see, life goes beyond death. Like, life itself is life. Life doesn't have an opposite. Like, we may think that it does, but all the things that exist are parts of life. And all the things that you can be conscious of, even you can be conscious of being alive. And I believe that's proof that our consciousness goes beyond our life itself. Like, what we are truly, what you are, when you think of what you are, what sits behind your eyes and watches everything that happens in your life, it's been the same thing that's been there since the moment you can remember your first memory till right now. Maybe your physical body changed, or the way you may kind of look at your thoughts, or the way you may reflect on your thoughts, or the way your thoughts reflect on reality. All those type of things can change, but the observing presence that's behind your eyes will remain the same forever, and that never changes, ever. Nothing that happens in this life can change that. Think about that. And I guarantee you, that thing, that whatever you want to say that is, it was there before you were in this form, and it will be there long after. So who you really are, you have no idea who you really are. And as because we don't think of it like this, we're all part of the ocean. We're all waves of the ocean. And as we are waves, and we sail across the ocean, we see ourselves as that wave. And so when it comes time for our wave to die out, we only can see ourselves as that wave. And so we don't see ourselves as the entire ocean, but we are the entire ocean. So when the wave fades out, trust me, you'll be more free than you could ever be inside this physical form, because this is not even close to what we really are. This is just one form of what we really are. What we really are is everything. And to be honest, since I wanted to speak about life and death, I'm gonna get into life too. I want y'all to think about this. Life itself. Before we come into this world, we're connected to everything. Everything that you could possibly want is already there. There's no such thing as want before you come in this world, because nothing is separate. Everything is complete. And when you come into this world, for the first time, you're separated from everything else. Now the nourishment of the universe is not just flowing into you. So now, you have to obtain that through other things throughout the world. Your parents help you first, and then after a while, you do that yourself. And I believe when we go, all that's going to happen is we're going to return to that. Everybody that I know who has had near-death experiences, or has had real what do they call it, satori's, like real strong flashes of insight. And all these things are explained as the same thing. Like it's all the questions that you could ever ask. When I experienced this feeling, I experienced it the same way as everyone. And I don't want to speak on everyone else, so I'll speak on myself, how I experienced it. It was like understanding that not only did I have the answer to all my questions, but that the questions aren't even real. Like, because the questions itself are only results of, like, the thoughts of duality. When you think with duality, you see things as separate, but nothing is really separate. Everything on the other side of the way we see it is already complete in its whole. But we don't see ourselves like that, because we see ourselves as what we are physically. But what we are physically can never amount up to what we're really capable of. Like, when you look at a physical person, you cannot look at him and see his entire capability. You can't see that. You can only see his physical form and what he projects to you. And depending on how deep he could dig inside himself and bring out, whatever he has, his innate, whatever it is that's innate inside him. And however much he brings that out, you can see that. You can view that, like, and you can feel people's presence, and, like, depending on how deep their presence comes from. Like, some people have power, and it's just like purely, surface power. Like, this is the boss, and he's the boss, and since he's the boss, he has this amount of. But then you have people who have power and it has nothing to do with that. No matter where they are, no matter what position they're in, they will hold the same amount of power, because that power comes from somewhere that's deeper. And the whole point of this conversation today, let's talk to you guys, and I'm gonna leave you guys with this. I want you guys to understand that we are much more than what we can imagine. First of all, whether you are religious or not, think about this word, God. When you think about the word God, I believe wars are fought over countless centuries over this word God, because the word God can never amount up to what it's pointing to. It can never do that. And so, since it can't do that, we can never fathom what the word God is trying to point to. And God is just a pointer to what someone is trying to say. And it's just an expression. It's a physical form. A word is an expression of something that, had no expression before that expression was there. And I believe all forms are created like through that. Even us. We're expressions. We're expressions of something that can't be fully expressed through us, but we can go as deep as we can to bring out as much of that expression. Now, what we see here is all that is in this physical world. All we're seeing is, like, reflecting light that's reflecting off the surface of things that reflect light. Sorry about that. My wife just called me on my phone, and I use my phone to record these videos, so just let you know. And all right, where I left off was, we are much more than what we see ourselves as. We are literally just looking at more of expressions of something that can't be expressed. So every time you look at something and what you express is a reflection of things that, what you're seeing, other expressions, all you're doing is having reflections of things that are already reflected. Think of that. You have to dig inside yourself as deep as you could and bring out your own version of what is on the other side.